consolidation plan, and then we're going to go into the main discussion of tonight, which is the update of the planning and zoning updates. So first item, roll call, Bill Pollack here.
Aaron Derrick here. Jim Watson is here.
Okay, great, thank you. First item on the agenda is a recommendation of Somerset Township property subdivision revision. The applicant is Somerset Township. Jim, or do you have someone that's prepared to explain what's proposed here?
It's on the board up here. We've been working on it for a year and a half, 2 years. It's roughly 2.4 acres that American Natural Resources agreed to sell to Somerset Township. It's basically the when you walk into the park, where the parking lot is, all that area, which we have no access to our park. Where the school was is basically where we're buying off of American Natural Resources. You know, 2-year process. It was owned by Murray Energy. They went bankrupt, and in turn went to American Natural Resources. We had to deal with them, so they agreed to the price, and we agreed. So that's what the plan was.
I have a question, Jim. The drawing has Pompey and Sons subdivision in the title of the drawing. That's right. The property is Somerset Township, right?
It's the right property.
And it's we actually purchased, what, 2 or 3 acres?
2.3.
Okay, and that was being consolidated into the parcel that we already own.
Yes.
See, there's a couple seats right up there on that second row.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Renovations of the park are not approved in the 24 budget.
Until we have the property.
Right, okay, so right now, this is just a preliminary plan and consolidation.
That's just for us to own the property, to have it all in one parcel. For us to buy the property.
Okay.
It's gonna be one parcel, subdivision from Murray Energy, which is now American Natural Resources.
Great, okay, thank you. Is there any questions, comments from the audience on the combination of the 2 parcels into the park? It's the old Somerset School property. Okay,
I
next
make a
question.
motion to accept the, Somerset Township Park subdivision as listed.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carried. Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is a review of the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance and the strategic land development ordinance. This has been changed since our last meeting about 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry. Approval of the minutes. I got ahead of myself. Approval of the minutes from the previous planning commission meeting, which was February 14th.
I make the motion to approve the minutes of the planning commission meeting on February 14, 2024.
I'll second it. All in favor? Yes. Motion carried. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the review of the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance and the strategic land development ordinance. And originally, we had this scheduled for basically 30 minutes to continue to 6 o'clock. And we had an agenda to review this quickly. We want to get comments from the audience, which with a significant crowd is going to take a considerable amount of time. And we have at the last minute seen an agenda where our planning consultant also wants to speak. At this point, can we extend the time for the planning commission meeting so the planning commission can review their items and get input from the audience? And then go through the second part that you have here designated in the agenda.
That's not my decision.
Can we extend, well, I'll make a motion that we extend the planning commission meeting for an hour. So that we can review this material. We've gotten input, at the last minute that you also have, plan discussions from the planning consultant.
The planning consultant's not speaking.
They're not speaking?
He'll do it for supervisor.
Okay, well, that's, I was told incorrectly then, Jim. I was told that this was going to be okay, then fine, and we'll run.
The only change is saying that there's a one time, so you can do what you want to do.
Okay, then we're going to follow the original agenda where the planning commission was going to provide a brief description of what's being proposed, get input from the residents, and then vote. And then we're going to adjourn the planning commission meeting, and then the supervisors are going to have a meeting, and you're going to have discussions from our planning consultant at that meeting. Okay, I was told that this was going to be integrated in the planning commission meeting. Okay, fine, then we can start with the original plan, which is to review resident input review of the updates to planning and zoning requirements. This is a copy of the summary of the details showing in the left-hand column the current situation, and in the right-hand column the proposed updates. Which this has been a major issue, and we've worked to get this out to everyone. The real issue for the changes are that we're taking the A1 district, which is about 80% of the township, where over 50% of the residents live, and we're adding business uses through special exemption or conditional use. We define 4, 5, or 6 conditions for that, and once we do that, then we no longer can use the residents' input as the criteria to accept or reject these business uses into a residential area. And with 80% of the township as A1, which most of us live, over 50% of the residents live in A1. This essentially, with the existing locations between B1 and M1, would mean that essentially 95% of the township would be available for business use, and 5% would be R1 and R2, which would be strict residential areas. That, we believe, is a major concern for the residents because, and we'll go through the uses, the major uses that would be commercial next to residences in the A1 district that potentially could be objectionable. But as the white area here is, the township's about 20,000 acres. The white area is A1. It's about 80% of the township. The purple is M1, and the yellow is B1. Those are about 15%. And the only residential districts in the township now are R1 and R2. R1 is green, and R2 is this little red. So that's about 5% of the township. So we think something that the residents, and we've done considerable canvassing with them, are quite concerned about is the fact that we're going to end up, if this proposal is accepted, with about 95% of the township will be commercial and business, and only 5% will be residential. And so to go through this, I'd like to hit a few of the things that we think are potentially the most objectionable to have next to residences in the A1. Again, that's where over 50% of us live. The first one is agricultural services. This is on the first page at this point. Agricultural services is proposed as a right in A1, M1, B1, B2, and R1. Which agricultural services, the document's 163 pages long. And if you go through the document and pull them out, being a right, there's no conditions attached to this. Agricultural services, use of land, structures, or buildings for the purpose of buying and selling commodities and services that are necessary to support agricultural operations, but does not include manufacturing, assembling, processing, warehousing, or construction uses. There's no limit on the lot size. The typical minimum lot size in A1 is 1 acre. So you could do a John Deere dealership or an agway on virtually any lot in A1 right next to a residence. We see that as being a potential issue for those that live in A1, and there's no control, it's a right, so you can't fight that. The next item that we think potentially could be a problem for people living in the A1 is the medical marijuana grower processor. That's on the second page, in the top third. That is a special exemption or conditional use. And if you go through the document, which I appreciate is hard to do, this is a building. This has to be done in a building. This would be an A1. The conditions, and the primary conditions are it would require 10 acres. Well, 10 acres with a building, it has den fans, it's all grown inside. I live on Rainy Road, we have a farm. Virtually there's about 60 houses on Rainy Road, the farms have been broken up. Virtually every house touches a lot that's 10 acres. So with this, you would be able to do this on virtually any lot, on a lot of the roads in the township with the 10-acre requirement. And this is a large commercial building with vent fans. So it has to be indoors, it has to be security. There's nothing else in these conditions that would preclude it from going on virtually any 10-acre lot in A1. Again, we think that potentially is something that a lot of people would not like to see next to their house. I'm just doing a couple of these. The next one was microbrewery, distillery. That is just one line under the medical marijuana. This is a special exemption in A1 also. And this is very similar to J&D Winery on Root Road, just outside of Somerset Township, off of 519. These properties would be able to operate from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. The entertainment must end at 10. They are not allowing DJs or live music at this facility, but the definition is they can serve 465,000 gallons of wine or distilled products a year. That's over 1,000 gallons a day, which is quite a bit. And Gary Wall, right here. Maybe you could speak for a minute or two. Yeah. Gary lives next to this on Root Road, and he could give you some first-hand impressions of what it's like.
First of all, that's not true about the DJs and live music. They're allowed to have.
Well, actually, Somerset has not allowed that here, but they allow background music.
Well, they're allowed to have live music and DJs, which is very loud. In fact, Derek can hear from his side. And what we've experienced is it starts out as one thing, and I don't know if some of you guys were here last time I was here. It starts out as just a winery thing, but it kind of balloons. And I told Bill I'd give you some examples on how it balloons. One is the winery's not allowed to serve food. Okay, so what happens is they can't serve food, so they bring food trucks in and then they serve food. So then it just goes on. The other thing is they're not allowed to sell beer at the winery, but they can sell beer if it's brewed locally. So like they can't sell Coors Light and they can't sell Bickman, but they can sell some local brewery beer. Okay, so what happens to us is it turns into just a little small winery that your neighbor wants to do, and it balloons and balloons and balloons, and turns into weddings there. They have, and it goes, and I live directly across the street from it. So, and every one of the lots that are on my road are over 10 acres. So I have 10 and a half, my neighbors have 10 and a half across the street with this and that, they're on 17 acres. It's all agricultural, but the township has, I've actually talked to the township 100 different times, and one of the township building inspectors actually said to me face to face, he says, I don't know what to tell you here, they got one on the car. That's their excuse at this point in time. So what happens is, it gets to be one thing and then turns into something totally different. And at that point in time, either the township has has no way of stopping it because of all the loopholes there are, or they have no desire to. I haven't figured out which. But we've been living with this for quite a while now, and it's just not getting any better. As soon as the weather gets good now, it'll start going out. They've actually petitioned the LCB so they can play, because technically by the LCB rules, the music is not allowed to be able to be heard outside the property line. Well, they petitioned the LCB, and they got that passed, that the music can be heard wherever. Okay, so as long as, we've been complaining, but, and every neighbor that lives in that direct vicinity just hates it, and it just turned into a bar. Basically, it's a bar across the street, and an agricultural area. I bought 10 acres to live out in the agriculture, so that's what we're doing. So I think there's a right place for them, but I just think there's a wrong place.
Gary lives on 10 acres, and actually, our requirement, one of our conditions is, it can be 200 feet from your property line. There's no minimum requirement for land on this, so the proximity is certainly an issue in the traffic. Again, something that is added to A1 with the special exemption conditional use. They meet these conditions, you can't say no. And it's like spot zoning throughout the township. 80% agriculture, where most of us live, would be spot zoned with these businesses. Okay, thank you very much, Gary.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I just want to take a couple more minutes. Repair garages, also another conditional use. This has been modified. The last change took it up to 5 acres, which certainly helps. But the conditions, there's no other, junk cars have to be screened. And there's nothing else here other than it has to be on 5 acres now. And again, the way Somerset Township is configured, it's not hard to get 5 acres. Next to you, across the street, or I'm sure most of us don't have to go far to see a parcel that is 5 acres. The last item I wanted to spend a little time on was the special event barns. And the special event barns accessory use particularly. They took the special event barns out of A1 and the last revision. Primary use, but the special event barns accessory use has virtually no significant requirements. No lot size, no limits on guests, no parking lots required to be built, although the parking is required to be on the property. And I think one of the most significant parts of this is there's no setback between the party barn and the adjacent residence. Earlier versions had a 1,000-foot setback between the party barn and the nearest residence. This accessory use has no setback, so you could virtually do this on any lot. And being close to something like an event like this, there's no limit on the number of attendees. It was originally limited to 200 plus the staff. It's allowed to operate to 11 o'clock at night. Any entertainment has to be inside the barn, but certainly opening the doors, having it close to the residents, and being able to do this with the accessory use. It's accessory to farming, but the farming is not 70% of your income. You could have some hay or a few chickens and meet the secondary requirement without a problem. So again, we're not, as planning and zoning, what we've been operating with is we've been operating under the principle of variances. With variances, we're able to go to you, the neighbors, when someone proposes something that is potentially offensive. We get the neighbor's input. You have to get a registered letter for a variance. You get to speak, and you get more control over what happens. With the special exemptions and conditional use, if they meet these conditions, you can't stop it. And this could be spread throughout the township. We have identified about 6 already of people that are interested in doing this. This is just the beginning. There's a township in Texas that has 35 of these. And again, we don't have the ability to control this. So that, looking at comparable situations, they have this same use in Nottingham Township. Party barn accessory use, except in Nottingham, they have to be 1,000 feet from the nearest residence. In Somerset, there's no requirement. They can only have 200 guests. In Somerset, there's no requirement. They can have 500 guests, as many as they want. Again, that's part of the accessory use. Our biggest concern is the A1 district where all these commercial uses could be input, which I've talked, I think, enough, just giving you an idea. This is why the planning and zoning, and Greg Spridick here is chairman of the zoning hearing board, and we've been working closely together to try and get these modified, and we have gotten some taken out at this point. We had prisons and a whole bunch of other things. We've been working on this for 6 months. We have made progress, but unfortunately, what we're left with now and we're being asked to vote on still has a lot of things that we know would be a problem if it's next to you. And unfortunately, if they meet these simple conditions, we're not going to be able to say no. We're going to approve it, and it's going to appear next to your house. Greg, would you like to make a few comments?
Yeah, just by looking at this chart, you can see that the zoning requirements for A1, M1, and B1 are pretty much all the same. So basically what's happening here is we're turning our agricultural land into commercial. And you have to ask yourself, why is this happening? And as Bill was stating, the conditional use would come through the supervisor. So once all these conditions are met, you're done. Met the conditions, you're gonna have whatever you can have. And a special exemption would come through the zoning hearing board. So, the zoning hearing board would have to ask the question, how does the proposed zoning exemption affect neighboring properties, and decide whether it's in the public interest before approving the exemption to the original zoning. For example, a park or school could not have much opposition, but a commercial enterprise could have strong opposition from the community, and that it fundamentally changes the character of the neighborhood. So what we're faced with today is that the Board of Supervisors are unilaterally deciding what is best for the people who elected. Then consideration or input from without any consideration or input from the affected parties. The board's proposal essentially is an end run, circumventing the rezoning process and establishes spot zoning in virtually every acre of the township. So you have to ask yourself, what's the board's justification in this, and overall, who benefits from these changes?
Here.
Surely it's not the majority of the residents. We all believe there's a place for commercial growth and encouragement, but only in appropriate areas, not everywhere and anywhere. We're being told that you should be able to do anything you want on your own property. In a libertarian sense, this may be true, but in reality, we all bound by endless regulations that makes this concept impossible. I don't know about any of you, but I, for one, am tired of being gaslighted by publicly elected officials. From right here in Somerset Township through Harrisburg and all the way to Washington, D.C., into accepting their perception of reality. We're being forced into accepting an Orwellian version of reality. If we don't let our voices be heard, then we do so at our own peril. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are not against these uses. We have a home for them. They're business uses. They belong in a business zone. I mean, you can even take A1 is about 16,000 acres. There are parts of A1 that are close to the highways. We're lucky. We have 7 miles of I-70 right through the middle. of Somerset Township with 5 exits. We zoned along the major highways for business and manufacturing. We're blessed with we've laid the township out for this. We did this in the 07-08, both Greg and I were here, planning and zoning, planning for this future. But having all these uses, it's spot zoning of business, and we'll end up with 95% of the township is business and only 5%. Nottingham Township, where all of our consultants and zoning board, our zoning review people, all are in Nottingham Township. They have about 50% of Nottingham Township is residential. And if this passes, we're gonna have about 5% as residential, and I think what most of us want is we wanna grow this as a great place to live, and not a township that's 95% business, and we have spot zoning throughout the whole township. But that's what we're looking at, and we'd like to give you a chance, and we have sign-up sheets, and we can have the sign-up sheets, and those that have signed up, we'd like to have you come up and tell us. Again, we're not against business. We want this in areas where it's not gonna disturb 10 neighbors over having one business use. And please, who has the sign-up sheets? I would also like to, we are also recording the meeting, and we will have it available online also at the conclusion of the meeting and within the next day or so. The sign-up sheets, can someone get those? Are they in the back? I'm sorry?
Just ask.
In the basket.
Okay. Okay, great. I have one sign-up sheet here, which is Michael. Okay, great. Michael, you can start, and then here. Yeah. Oh well, wherever you're coming. And then anything. Okay, we have more.
In my opinion, both of you gentlemen here are supposed to use common sense. Good common sense. And that's really what we need, not to be gaslit, like the gentleman said. I think we got to follow the money. Who benefits from this? We don't benefit from this. More is not always better. In this case, more is less. Less because more traffic, more wear and tear on our roads, more dangerous for our citizens, more taxes, because these roads are going to be tore up from all this extra. So we like our quiet little community. I hope I speak for you. I know I'm speaking for myself. Who benefits from these changes? That's the question. He asked the question, why? Why? These variances that you're currently working with, that's common sense. Not just a blanket resolution that people can come in and do whatever they want if they meet these regulations that are proposed. That's not common sense. We need common sense. We're the people. This is democracy. Our voices need to be heard. Our lights need to be addressed, not somebody else's lights. What makes sense to me is keep it exactly the way it is. We don't have to make these changes. Why make the changes? I looked at the budget. It's balanced. Doesn't look like we need an influx of any additional funds. So why create these problems? The unknown is the problem. The known is not the problem.
Amen. Paul Myers. Thank you. I'd like to mention that we actually had an independent legal review from the leading law firm in Washington County, Gary Sweat, who is also the counsel for Washington County, as well as North Strabane, which is one of the most complex, rapid-growing townships. We have a written legal opinion that says we do not have to put these uses in A1. We simply have to find a home for them. They're businesses, we can find a home, and that's what we have proposed to do. But yeah, Paul, would you like to come up and speak?
Bill, mine was for the Board of Supervisors.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Dave Wiltrout?
Mine's for the supervisors also.
Okay, okay, great. Don Yates, Jones?
No, that's for the supervisors.
Okay. And, John McPherson, Marchese.
That's for the supervisor.
Okay, great. And, Greg has spoken. Okay, anyone else that would like to speak, we want to hear your voice. Please, if you'd like to come up and speak, then, we would, certainly love to have you come up. Any questions on the overall? It's a lot. There's 200 and some pages. We just got this Wednesday of last week. We had, many of you attended the 2-hour meeting we had. John Trent ran that session, went through the details. We had a lot of questions and good discussions. Both planning and zoning immediately tried to meet with the supervisors to sit down and work through the things that we saw as important for the citizens. They would not meet with us. They worked with the planning consultant and came up. They did add some changes. The dog kennels can now be, the open pens can now be 200 feet from your property line, and they have to have 5 acres, but there were a couple of changes that were made, but these were remaining, and we still see these as being a real potential issue. And if we pass this, the process here is that tonight, the 3 planning commission members, we're going to vote to either recommend this to the supervisors, and the supervisors, there are 3 supervisors have the final authority on this. They can overrule. If we vote, the 3 of us, the majority vote not to accept this, then the supervisors, and their meeting is scheduled for what, the 20th of May? That is the date that the supervisors will vote whether to accept this or not. So this is the municipality's planning code in Pennsylvania dictates this process. They do not give the planning commission the authority if we vote it down. But we do have the authority to do exactly what we're doing now, which is to communicate to the residents what's being proposed, get your input, and then use that in our decision, which we'll be making here at the conclusion of this meeting in just a few minutes. But if there's anything else, yes?
Yeah, 200 feet's awfully close for an easement for your neighbor for a dog kennel. What do you think?
Yeah, that's certainly, barking dogs. We live in the middle of a 150-acre farm, and a neighbor had a barking dog 1,500 feet away that was still offensive. Yes, good point.
Yes,
Yes.
Bill, who's responsible for enforcement of violations?
Zoning enforcement, right now, municipal services.
Municipal services, farm property owner, I have a complaint, the zoning ordinance guys, not doing what they're supposed to under the category, where does it go?
That's a good question. The Rush Raver has a large event facility on 37 acres, and I pulled up the notes from their meetings, and they even have their own police force, but they were arguing over who's gonna go at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and the state police are gonna laugh at us if we call them, which is, you're on your own, and they were even, in Rush River, they were even debating, nobody wanted to go and take care of it even there with a big municipal police force. So we're pretty much on our own, as we know, and so we can't rely on people to solve these late night noise problems.
The other question is, are landfills included in any of these permits? Authorized uses?
Landfills, it was listed. Conditional use, I'm sorry, you have to write it. It's conditional use in the M1, which M1 is primarily, the big part of M1 is the old Line 60 property. It's the purple on the map. So that would be a conditional use on the landfills. And I had to go to the document in 3 or 4 different places to get all of the conditions for one use. I haven't done that yet on landfill.
Landfills are extremely expensive.
That's in the pollution to the groundwater. That's what the slave dump did for Mine 60.
Plus the transportation, all the trucks on
The trucks, Exactly, that, having that in the middle of the township, which is another issue with all these business uses popping up. Even the residential areas are in feeder routes, we don't have cul-de-sacs, and I think that's a good thing. But if you bring a lot more traffic to the middle of the township for businesses, then everyone's gonna see more traffic as well, certainly a landfill or big garbage trucks rolling in for hours and hours a day. Yes, okay, great, yes.
I'm speaking on for a minute.
Yeah, sure, yeah, definitely talk.
I wasn't really gonna get up here to speak, but, I actually come around with a petition and spoke to a lot of you people, a lot of my real close neighbors. And, I just got involved with this, a buddy of mine gave me a call and let me know what was going on, so I stopped in to see what's going on, and I got involved with petitions. But it seems crazy to me that all this was being done without anybody knowing. Well, there was meetings, but everybody I spoke to, with maybe exception of maybe 5 or 10 people, and I had over 130 some signatures on petitions, and nobody knew what was going on. I mean, for something this big that's affecting the community, I think would have been great to send out some kind of a questionnaire or some kind of a letter, some kind of notification. There's meetings going on all the time, there's advertisements in the paper, and, who looks at that? I mean, yeah, okay, they say it's some kind of zoning thing. It's kind of ignorant, we don't. But when something this big is affecting all of us, and everybody I spoke to, signed a petition, they don't want this to go on. And I've lived here all my life, been on the same piece of ground all my life. I was born and raised here, and I want it to stay the way it is. A lot of people just moved into the community because they see how nice it is, and knowing that the zoning's the way it is, and they're living in an agricultural area. And it's great. Some of these businesses, I think, will be great. There's places for them. If they want to be in a place that they're not, and they get the variance, then that's great too. At least you're talking to your neighbors, and you're not starting a feud next door with your neighbors. So I hope it all goes through. I can see both sides of some of it, especially if I was on the side wanting to put a business in and do something. I can see that, because then I'd say definitely, hey, this passes, and I wouldn't have to ask my neighbors or talk to them, and I can start a big feud with them, I guess, and just put it in. But I don't think that's the way it should be. I mean, the neighborhood's been really great. Like I said, I've been here all my life, and that's all I want to say. Wasn't going to speak, but thought I ought to put that out. Thanks for everybody that come out that actually signed a petition for me. I really appreciate it, and a lot of you guys showed up here tonight. Thank you.
We had about a dozen volunteers. I went up Ring Road myself, and it's really good to get out. And I found that about 90% of my neighbors don't want additional commercial in A1 where most of us live. And I think the response was similar with others. We have hundreds of signatures. We're going to present these and finalize them before the supervisors vote on the 20th of May, but we already have hundreds of signatures. It's not 51% of the people that don't want it, it's closer to 90. Yes?
I got a question. Anything going on going to be built by the supervisors?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, where we live, they want to do that in Lawrence. That's, this house, they're going to vote on that. It's going to be, tied up.
That's it. We don't have any, and we were told there were 4 or 5 people that were interested. I did a right to know request because as a planning commission, we want to understand, and zoning as well. We want to understand the demands. We don't want to just say no. We need to understand what's going on so we can figure out how to accommodate them without destroying the lives of other people. And there are ways to do that if you have information. I did a right to know, and they said they weren't written down, they can't tell me. But in our canvassing, I think we found, 6 or 7 people. We even found 2 side by side on one very small, narrow road in the middle of the township, and 200 people plus 30 staff members. And of course, with accessory use, there's no limit on the number of people. It becomes a big traffic problem as well. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, then I will we'll go back, and I think I'll get my agenda, and we'll call for a vote on the proposal thank you for your input. I appreciate this is what we work to do, is to let people know what was being proposed, get your input, so that this would not be passed without people understanding we do not have the benefit of your input. Yes?
No way to put this as a referendum on a ballot, let the people speak.
Unfortunately, not. The people that we've talked to, and we've retained our own attorney that we're paying for ourselves. There's no way to put this on a ballot and vote on these zoning regulations. Of course, one way is voting for the supervisors, but that's a 6-year term, so I think we have 3 supervisors and 6-year staggered terms on a 2-year basis. So unfortunately, I mean, we would love to have a vote, present it and have a vote, but there's no mechanism that I'm aware of, and if anyone else has any input on that, please let us know. So the real method we have is to convince our supervisors that the majority of the people don't want this, and then get 2 of the 3 to vote no.
And work with the planning commission. Everybody work together and something will get accomplished.
And that's what, but we, as I said, we tried after the 2-hour meeting, about 2.5 weeks ago, we tried both, and we're working together, planning and zoning. We said, let us get together, we want to sit down and work this out. But we were rebuffed. We were given a half an hour to have this meeting. Today, we wanted an hour, but that's the logical way to do it. That's what we've been trying to do, and hopefully we can do that before they get implemented.
They work for us, so they should listen to us. Right.
That's right. In theory,
We're paying their salaries.
yes, we're paying them.
The question is, what is the motivating factor?
Exactly.
If money is not needed, we don't have to increase the tax base. What is the motivation for it?
Businesses don't increase the tax base, though.
Why?
We'll address it at our meeting.
You have to ask yourself too, how much outside interest is there in this? Because I know property that was sold for $1 million.
Yep.
For the exact purpose of making a wedding barn. Neither the people reside here.
It becomes for investors. I spent 40 years here. I was gone for 30 years. I came back because this is a great place to live. But I understand the investor side of it. And investors look for a place that's easy to come in. And with these regulations, it would be easy. We would attract a lot of outside investors that just want to come in and put businesses in the middle of the township. And that's something we would like not to see. We want to have neighbors that like the township and the separation of business, which is zoning. I mean, you don't even have to have zoning in Pennsylvania. About 30% of the townships don't have zoning. Somerset decided to have zoning around 1985. That was a great decision. Zoning is like uses. Like uses is not residential and business. But that's the motive we're in. Okay, great. Well, I will, at this point, again, thank you for your comments and input. We've done the review, and now I'm going to ask for a recommendation of the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance and the salary.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if this was addressed before, but I have B2, zoning district of B2,
Yes.
which on here is the adult bookstore,
That's correct.
and only the adult bookstore, correct? What is in with that B2 besides the adult bookstore?
Greg, you can probably answer that question better than I
I
can.
see nothing on this map except for the adult bookstore and B2.
Oh, that's it. You're looking at an older,
You're not even close to it.
yeah, this chart shows, if you go down B2, this is the latest zoning use chart. The green side is what's proposed now. No, that was a very short, this has been going on, that was the 222 version. This is the March 25 version. I can give you a copy of this. So, but you can see B2 does have, they have more uses allowed in B2, but the B2 zone in Somerset is essentially like a camera, exit,
It looks on this map that it is just that adult bookstore. They can put in an animal shelter, an assisted living facility, an auction house.
well, they've made those uses, you're right, there's not a lot of acreage there.
Well, they're in clean and green. Why? Why would you do that with an adult bookstore? That's like you're placing more of that. We don't want that.
Right, and I think.
They should have nothing down there except the parking. Everything else should not be there. Right?
I think, Greg, you were here when I was gone when that was,
Yeah, that was done through the conservation. Yeah,
I think that's what, wasn't that what happened before they adopted zoning? Or did they have zoning? Okay, yes, the, Carlton Motel was across the river.
Right, that was the,
It's the Hardy's.
I have a problem with that. I do have a problem with adult bookstore having no.
Well,
You two should have nothing down here, nothing at all.
there's actually, this update does not change the zoning, so we're not expanding the B2 area. So in this case, B2 uses would not be, and this map actually shows, there's a little,
That's right here, or water, isn't that down here?
oh wait, no, I'm sorry, you're right, B2 is right here.
And right there, the adult bookstore, right there, that's the adult bookstore. The other
That's
side of the road is
right.
That's industrial.
And we're not expanding that zone. You're right, there are more uses to that
They
zone.
should have enough.
There's no more.
Well, aren't you gonna make these changes with the property, right? Agreed? Should they have it?
Well, I think what we're going to is, right now, we're gonna vote from the planning commission whether to accept or reject this. And then that's gonna go to the supervisors, so we'll have another chance to speak before the supervisors, at the 20th of May meeting, because that's the final vote. Nothing will be done. This vote is an advisory vote from the planning commission right now. Okay, great, thank you. At this point, I would like to call, for the recommendation for the proposed amendments for the zoning ordinance and zoning. Do I have a motion?
I make the motion to approve the recommendation as proposed to the zoning ordinance itself as presented.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, no second, then it dies from the lack of a second. I'm going to make a motion that we reject the proposed zoning ordinance, and sell it. Do I have a second to that? All in favor? Yes. Okay. Motion carried. The planning commission recommends that we reject these proposed amendments to the planning ordinance and sell it. This will be sent to the supervisors, and on the 20th of May, the supervisors will have a vote, which there's another chance they will have a hearing as part of that. And in the meantime, we are available to sit down, planning and zoning are available to sit down and work this out, which is what we've been trying to do for 6 months. Very painful 6 months. I might have, but thank you very much. And now we'd like to, do I have a recommendation to adjourn? Okay, I'll second that. All in favor? Yes. Okay, planning commission meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.